All right, so we've welcome everyone after the break. I think we have very great one of the important topic. Personally, even I really want to understand this. So, welcome Vinod and Senthilkumar for this amazing session on how we can be a QA can become a DevOps expert. Very interesting. So Vinod has more than a decade of experience into software testing and quality assurance. Same with Senthi has more than 30 plus and predominantly into the quality assurance. Amazing. So we are going to learn from both of you, and really excited to learn from you, understand your experience, and see how we can. And I am a QA, so how a QA can become a DevOps expert. For more details about both of them guys, we can check on GTR's website. So feel free and maybe you can connect them. So I think stage is open to you guys. Maybe you can share your screen, Vinod or Senti, and please help us to understand what you're gonna tell us today. Thank you very much. Thanks, Vinod.
Sure, thank you, Smith. Hope you can see my screen.
Yeah.
Okay. Smith, can we go ahead? Assuming all participants are back and we can go ahead.
Perfect. Yeah. I see a few are still joining in. I will admit them, but yeah, you can start. I can see your screen. I hope others can also see. If not, please raise your hand. I will talk to you. And I think for Slido guys, we can start having questions there, and maybe end of the session we'll go for that. But feel free to ask in between also, because it's a lab kind of a workshop session. So go ahead and you can check with both of them. Yeah, go ahead.
Sure, thanks, Smith. Again, just recapping on the topic, right? So, the topic for today's workshop is how can QA become a DevOps expert? And in this whole process, we will use Azure DevOps as the tool that we will use to conduct the practitioner session. We will start off with what is DevOps, why DevOps, and most important question: why should QA become a DevOps expert? What is the need? And is it enough if QA just learns automation? Should they really focus on the whole DevOps? Why should they? Right. So that is what we'll try to cover as an introduction, and then we'll get into the actual Microsoft Azure DevOps itself, platform itself. Through that, we will learn some of these DevOps terminologies, how to do stuff, and then we will do some hands-on as well through this exercise. At the end of it, we wanted to make sure that there is some sufficient hands-on so that you're able to, while you understand the fundamentals, you're able to have some good, decent hands-on, which is the important thing to gain confidence. Again, for that to be effective, please, we need your email IDs. If you can post your email IDs, Senthil will start adding you as users. And when we get to the second half of the session, you will be able to actually log into Microsoft Azure DevOps, and you will be able to create some of these. So please ping your email IDs to Senthil if you have not already shared it with him. He's already received 7 or 8 email IDs, and we'd like to get the rest of you if you are interested in doing a hands-on as well. With that, I'll get into the actual session itself, just an introduction, right? So what is DevOps? So I'm sure all of you have heard this classic story about people that are blindfolded, that are trying to figure out what an elephant is, right? Someone is sitting on top of it and gives a different story. Someone holds the tail and tells a different story. So like the very same thing, I think again, when you talk about DevOps, unless you go through a formal learning, a very formal learning, if you start hearing about DevOps, you probably hear different things, right? People come back and say it is about the pipeline. It is about automating stuff, right? So different things that you hear, right? You hear that DevOps is about development and the operations collaboration, which is very much in the name of DevOps itself. You hear that DevOps is about treating infrastructure like a code. You hear DevOps is all about automation. DevOps is about the ability to switch features, right? DevOps is about a small deployment, right? So different things that we would have heard. So we will formally start off with a very formal introduction about what DevOps is, right? So what is DevOps? Does it mean all of this, or does it mean some part of it? The answer to this is it means all of this that you see in the slide. Plus, it also means a little bit more. That is what we'll probably try getting into the initial over the next 2 days. Just going back to some of the basics of DevOps before we really get into a hands-on. Right. So what is DevOps? Right. I'm sure all of us have heard this terminology quite often. Maybe some of us have already masters of it. Some of us are starting to learn. Whichever different phase that you are in, I think it's worthwhile for us to just step back and understand what is DevOps. Right. This is just like waterfall and agile. This is just another software development practice. But what is the key part of it is it promotes the collaboration between development and operations. Right. None of the earlier methodologies, be it agile or be it waterfall, did not promote collaboration between operations and development. It was probably promoting collaboration between QA and dev and stakeholders involved, and project stakeholders that are other stakeholders that are involved in it, but not necessarily operations, right? And the problem with that was development was being done very well, and then it was handed over and pushed into production. There were a lot of issues in production. Operations faced the brunt of it, right? So which is where this whole DevOps and the collaboration between development and operation coming through that methodology, right? And what does all of this? It helps. One, it helps delivery faster, which is like very kind of very much aligned to what the agile development methodology was trying to bring in. But then more importantly, it helps bring about more reliable software, because you now have operations also into the mix. Your post production folks, the operations, that part of it also coming into the mix. You have a much more reliable software in addition to delivering software faster. And the three key pieces of getting into DevOps is being able to unify the whole people, process, and the technology concept of it together. So you're able to deliver customer value and the delivery of customer value on a very ongoing and cyclical basis, right? That is the fundamentals of DevOps. So what did DevOps do earlier? Development and IT operations were kind of siloed, right? Development was doing its own stuff, moving things into production. IT operations was taking what was coming from developments and facing the heat of what was getting thrown into production. And then there was security and many of these other pieces, right? So all of these kind of played in silos, and then DevOps bring all of this together and promotes this whole collaboration in a much more better manner than any of the other earlier terminologies. And you will more often hear the term that DevOps is not just a software development practice, but it's also about a culture, and truly applies, because it's not only just about following a set of practice. It's about really getting into that culture of DevOps and being able to deliver value consistently to the customer through collaboration and through some of these unifying this people, process, and technology together, right? I think this slide I kind of covered mostly around definition. I wanted to kind of set the base foundation of the definition of DevOps. But what does DevOps mean just as a practice? What are in the first slide you saw that elephant diagram and a set of things around it, and here I'm kind of trying to summarize all the fundamental things that are needed when we say something is DevOps, right? The first one is getting into an agile kind of a methodology, right? Agile planning, lean project management, right? Getting into a framework that lets you deliver code in shorter time frames, in shorter incremental sprints, right? That is the first fundamentals of DevOps, right? Delivering code incrementally and delivering within short time frames, number one. Number two, version control has been there traditionally for very long, but with DevOps that plays a much more predominant role. And why? Because one, version control for very basics of development methodology, version control allows you to manage the whole thing in a much more, the whole development lifecycle in a much more efficient manner. And with DevOps, you're talking about multiple teams collaborating as well, and thereby whenever there are multiple teams coming in, version control plays a key role, right? But much more than all of these reasons, version control in DevOps plays a key role, because you're talking about automated software delivery into production. And if you're talking about automated delivery, should there be an issue when things go to production, you also need a way to automate it, to roll back stuff in an automated manner. So that is where version control plays a very critical role. The ability to be able to automatically roll back and not have problems, right? That is where version control plays a key role in DevOps than any other older methodologies, right? And next is continuous integration, continuous delivery. I'm sure many of us that have heard DevOps or started working on DevOps have this terminologies, know this terminology very well, right? Continuous integration, just the very basics of how do you automate the whole build process, how do you automate the testing process, right? The whole building process and the whole automation, the testing process in an automated manner, right? So this is just the fundamentals of continuous integration, just these two elements. So whenever a code is checked in, it can automatically be built, it can automatically be tested, and then if those are successful, then the code can be merged into the main branch, right? This is just the basics of continuous integration. So what is continuous delivery? Continuous delivery is just extending this into the next level, where you're applying this whole concept into every phase of the whole DevOps life cycle. So you're testing stuff, validating stuff, committing, all of this run seamlessly in an end-to-end manner, so that you're able to deliver the software into production, right? So that is about continuous delivery. I will not probably explain more, because I'm sure all of you that have heard of DevOps have heard very much about CI/CD and the need for automating our test cases and then integrating them into the CI/CD pipeline, right? So we'll not spend a lot of time on that. Next is monitoring and logging. So through the whole process of DevOps, right? A lot of data gets created, right? A huge amount of data gets created through the development lifecycle. That is number one. Number two, DevOps also brings operations much more closer, so you get more visibility into what is happening into production. So essentially, collecting this data, number one. Number two, putting in a lot of monitoring and logging processes, so that you can get feedback back, and you can use back into your the whole life cycle is all about is what comes under monitoring and logging. Sixth element is about infrastructure as a code. I'm sure this also is another terminology that you may have heard, where you can spawn up and spawn down environments in an automated manner. So whether you are going into cloud, or whether you're doing deployment in an on-prem environment, right? In either of these cases, test environment right becomes as one of the very key element, right? So how can you make the whole test environment as more like a configuration file, more like a flat file, and how infrastructure that you can build up and down seamlessly. When you need an environment, you can spawn it in an automated manner, and when you don't need the environment can be teared down, right? So how essentially setting up the configuration, setting up those files, getting all your environment in the form of a file that can be used. We're talking about definition files for the whole a set of definition files, and on top of it some process automation, which will enable you to build up and build down environments on a need basis. That is what is part of infrastructure as a code. Next is validated learning. I kind of touched some elements of it in monitoring and logging. So essentially, like I said, in the whole DevOps lifecycle, a lot of data gets created. And when this data gets created, it's very, very important that all of this data can be fed back into the DevOps lifecycle. And you're able to use this data to take some more meaningful decisions and to be able to improve your the whole DevOps lifecycle. So this data can kind of help you point to 2-3 things. Number one, how can you increase your automation? Where can you increase your automation? Where do you need to increase your automation? Number one. And number two, where does the process needs to be improved, right? Number two. And number three, how can you prepare for deployment so that it can be much more quicker and efficient, right? These are broad stroke 3 areas in which this whole data can be used back, right? I'll recap. One is how can you improve your automation, where and how, right? Increasing, number one, automation, and number two, increasing your whole DevOps process itself, and number two, getting more into the deployment cycle. How can you do that, the process of getting that whole deployment more quicker in a much more efficient manner, right? So these 7 are in the fundamental building blocks of getting a very effective DevOps in place. I maybe pause here for any initial questions you may have. If not, I'll maybe I'll pause for a few minutes, and then I'll get into the rest of the slides. Any questions? I guess not. So we'll move on. So I mean, we talked about what is DevOps. We talked about what are the 7 the building blocks, the 7 building blocks that constitute DevOps. Now I think that is fine, right? I think while those are fundamentals, very basics of fundamentals, I think what is very important for us to understand is what is the role of QA in DevOps, and what is the need for QA to understand DevOps and become a DevOps expert. Why can't QA just stay at doing manual testing and maybe just automation testing? Why does QA really have to get into DevOps itself, right? And that is the question that we will try answering in this slide. We will probably cover the role of QA in DevOps in a holistic manner, starting from the very fundamental role of what QA plays in that. Plus, we'll also cover why in that also kind of cover the other element of it as to why QA should become a DevOps expert. So in the whole DevOps lifecycle, QA plays the fundamental, the more strategic role of ensuring quality. And as you shift into DevOps, quality is not just the responsibility of the QA team. Quality is you will more often hear this term that quality is the responsibility of the entire team. It's not only the responsibility of development, the responsibility of QA. Sorry, it's not in the responsibility of QA, but it's the responsibility of development and all of the players that are involved in this whole in this whole life cycle. While that is true, what is more important is there is one person. While many players come and distribute and hold the responsibility for the quality. QA is still centrally will play the strategic role so that it defines kind of the best practices, the strategy, and the approach that is needed for the whole quality to be set well in place. And when we say more than earlier, when we say it is the complete team's responsibility, not just the development team's responsibility. What we mean by here is, in more than any other phase, be it waterfall or be it agile, here in DevOps, the, starting from unit testing to functional testing to things getting integrated and finally moving into production across multiple different environments, the quality gets controlled, the quality gets defined in an automated manner. You decide that only if my unit testing is 80% pass success rate, then things will move to the next environment, right? Or if it is X percentage in the system testing environment, it does move into the next cycle. So a lot of these processes get automated. And if you in that life cycle, I'll maybe pick an example. If, for example, you decide that I'm going to make unit testing 100% pass as a gating criteria for something to move into the next environment, QA environment. Never will your QA tests get passed 100%, or very rarely will they get passed, which means you're choking in such a way that you're setting the bar too high on quality that it never moves to the next cycle, right? So you're probably not a great. So, which means should it not be 100, then what should it be? Should it be 70%? So, or should it be 60%? Let's say you set the threshold lower, then what happens is you get tests, you get a code that is not tested very well, or you get a code that is probably as poor, not of the quality that you want, and then that keeps moving into the next phase of the cycle. So, which means then what is the balance? Where do you draw the line, right? What should be the quality? What should be the percentage? What is a great gating criteria, right? So this is just one example of the strategic decisions, or the high level decisions that you need to take so that the whole DevOps cycle is set appropriately. This is one very simple example. There are many other decision points that need to be taken, and especially when it's when only the QA plays the role of testing, it is easier. But when it is shared as a responsibility to multiple stakeholders, that is where this whole role, QA playing a centralized role of defining the whole approach, defining the whole strategy, and defining some of these gating criteria, and being the central champion for quality, right? That is number one, plays as a very key role, right, for QA. That is number one. Number two, QA kind of acts as a bridge between DevOps, and thereby kind of ensures that quality is built into every stage, right? So DevOps a lot of it is about collaboration, and then QA kind of plays two things very importantly, right? One is that making sure that quality is kind of traversing in every phase of the life cycle of the whole DevOps life cycle, and throughout the life cycle, number one. And then it is a kind of a shared responsibility, right? So QA kind of acts as a bridge in kind of stitching together this whole team, and getting this whole quality across the entire life cycle. That is number two. And number three, QA acts as a gatekeeper for software releases, right? So QA team pushes the new development code into the production, right? And DevOps, the whole DevOps kind of facilitates to ensure that there is a seamless deployment, and there are kind of infra and tools. But then fundamentals, QA is the one that kind of pushes, does the quality gating and kind of pushes into production. So thereby QA still plays a very, very key role, right? And last but not the least, quality in the whole DevOps, right? Quality does not stop at just delivering things, right? Quality goes much beyond that, right? Quality goes into getting feedback in production, and then taking that back, and taking back that feedback and bringing that back into your DevOps life cycle, so that you have much more stabler product released in production. DevOps is about two things. One is delivering faster, and second is a more reliable product to the customer. So that is where more than the earlier methodologies of waterfall or agile, here the visibility for quality into production is more, and that feedback needs to be tied back into the whole DevOps lifecycle, and that is where the QA team plays a much more prominent role. So in all these four things that I spoke about, one thing lies fundamentally that without the solid understanding of how the whole DevOps works, not just about the testing and not just about automating and not just about integrating into the life cycle, but understanding the whole DevOps and being able to perform all the steps all the key steps in the DevOps lifecycle is what is needed for QA. So it's not just about being able to automate; it's also being able to perform each of the steps, understand the steps, and be able to perform all of the steps in the DevOps, right? And more than the traditional waterfall and more than the traditional agile, now QA, when there is a tester, when there is a QA personnel in a DevOps, which means they are working with much more technical professionals into right. So more than in the waterfall world, more than in the agile world, now QA is working much more collaboratively and is very much sitting in the middle of a lot of technical folks. So it is important. There is one more reason it's important for this team to be able to perform these DevOps roles more effectively. I'll probably, at the bottom of the slide, I've given a quote. I'll probably use that quote, right? Right. You don't have to become a professional developer to be in a modern DevOps role, but then you have to change your mindset and start helping people instead of providing a transactional service to them. That is the fundamental. So it's not about just providing one service, one transactional service. It is about being able to help with various roles in the DevOps lifecycle, right? Not just pure play fundamentals of QA, but then also being able to really get there and play. One of the elements of DevOps is each of the different players in the DevOps teams are able to interchangeably play roles to a certain reasonable extent. And that is where QA's role also to understand DevOps and contribute to the DevOps more meaningfully is important, right? He says, he quotes by saying, he ends the quote by saying, luckily the vast majority of people in QA are capable of me making that pivot. And in today's session, that is what we'd like to get into DevOps, we will use Microsoft Azure as a platform, and we kind of want you to touch all the elements of DevOps. Obviously, at the end of the session, you will not become a DevOps expert, but I'm sure you would have touched all the basic elements, and it'll be easier for you. For you to go back and do some hands-on. So we will also try doing some hands-on here so that you get that comfort and that confidence that you can do some of these many of these DevOps activities. So. And one more slide quickly before we get into really the next steps of Microsoft Azure and the hands-on part of it, getting really into understanding the platform. So just one more slide, right? I've taken a couple of industry stats, a kind of key references to kind of say, particularly from DevOps, what are the points that are working well, what are the points that are not working well, right? A few stats to quote. I'm sure us being in the QA industry, we would have heard all of these stats, many such stats. Maybe I think it's just a kind of a quick recap, right? 40% of development budgets are consumed by poor requirements, right? Agile kind of solves it, and then DevOps inherently takes it to one more level, right? And then we're talking about 40% implementation end up getting reworked because we don't get the user requirements correctly, right? So DevOps again also brings in the elements of iterative development, plus also brings in the whole quality through the life cycle and looking at production. So you get the production feedback, which means you get the end user feedback. So DevOps solves this problem a little more than any of the earlier methods. And particularly about DevOps should not be rushed in any organization. I think if you try to rush into an organization, 80% failure rate has been given as an example, right? So there are steps to implement DevOps. There are steps to get the best practices. I talked about the example of what is the right percentage of setting a quality gate, right? That's a very classical example, right? And there is no one standard to it, right? You cannot apply what works in one project and take that. Let's say one project successfully runs with 90% as a quality gate for unit testing. That doesn't mean that will apply to every other project, right? It's about applying it to a particular project and fine-tuning it on an ongoing basis, right? So there will be a problem with trying to rush DevOps and trying to implement it, right? On the right hand side, a couple of industry quotes or statistics to say how teams that are much more collaborative are able to produce better outputs, right? So outperforming teams are 50% more likely to be collaborating. So which means a development model like DevOps helps you get stuff done 50% better than the others, right? Similar quote on the right side, again a similar quote that talks about how high performance is driven by uh, how IT drives the success of business itself, right? And again, a few more quotes that are given. I'll probably not bore you with more and more quotes, but a few more quotes at the bottom portion just for your reading to see a bug that is caught in production, how much it costs versus earlier. I'm sure being in QA, we would have used statistics like this in many of our presentations to our customers or to our internal stakeholders or even in training sessions. So I'll not get into deeps of it, but I think these are very recent stats again from very highly recognized industry analyst quotes, right? So all in all, I think the summary is the intent of the slide is to kind of set more pace and tone to why DevOps is why DevOps. And DevOps has been, if you read in the industry analysts and stuff like that, you will find that DevOps has been picking up very, very well than right in the last 3-4 years. DevOps has been picking up tremendously, right? And another quote that is given on the slide itself, the end of says that 70% of CIOs would take risk, are willing to take the risk as a compromise to being able to accelerate their business agility, right? So they want to go faster, and for that purpose, they are willing to take risks, right? And for a methodology and for CIOs that want to go that fast, I think DevOps is the structure to both accelerate as well as to de-risk, to minimize that risk. So it solves both their aspiration as the risk that they are taking. It kind of mitigates. So with that, I'll conclude what DevOps is about. We kind of covered the introduction to DevOps. We talked about what is DevOps, what are the 7 fundamental building blocks of DevOps, and what is the role that QA plays in a DevOps, and why is it important for QA not just to understand QA testing and automation, but really end-to-end understand DevOps, not just understand, be able to perform those roles and be able to contribute more effectively within the DevOps lifecycle. So this is what we kind of covered in the introduction. Subsequent to this, we'll get into Azure DevOps. So our intent is not in the slide is not, I mean, in the rest of this deck is not to sell Azure DevOps, but we are using that as a platform because among all the DevOps platforms, that is one of the, I would say that is one of the most matured platforms. And Azure in itself has been today very easily 25 to 30% Azure DevOps is used across our projects, across industry, right? Azure DevOps has been used, and that is an easier way because a lot of it is pre-built in it. That is one of the easier way for us to start off with learning Azure DevOps. And once you learn through Azure DevOps through Azure, subsequently you can switch back to something that is completely open source, where you may have to do you may have to do some things yourself, right? So I think this is a platform that will help you start off and learn easily because a lot of things are pre-built in it. And then once you learn with this, once you get the confidence, and that will help you switch into something where things are not as much fully automated and you may have to do it manually. So this is a good starting platform. That is why we kind of using Azure DevOps as a platform. Just again, another reminder: if you have not given your email IDs, please bring them over to Senthil. He can add you to one of the projects that he's created. And once he spends another 15-20 minutes trying to explain Azure DevOps, the features of Azure DevOps, then we can get into some actual hands-on that you can do. You don't need any prerequisites. You just need to give your email ID to Senthil, and then once he configures it, you can use your browser and do replicate what he has done in the first 15 to 20 minutes. If you have done this already, if you've done whatever you may hear from Sundar, if you've done this already, you may skip the hands-on part, but you may have not done it. I would highly recommend you to spend time trying to do this hands-on in the second half of the session, where we will dedicate almost an hour only to do pure hands-on. Again, we have touched only the fundamentals. We'll touch only the fundamentals of it, but learning those fundamentals will definitely give you much confidence. If you're not already done this, give you the good confidence for you to be able to really become the next step, which is becoming the expert in it. Right? So what you see in this slide is the rest of the agenda, what we will do in each step within DevOps that we will go through. With that, I will hand over to Senthil. Before I hand over to Senthil, maybe you can pause for a quick 2-3 minutes to see if there are any questions just on the basics of DevOps, or even if you have specific asks as to what you would like to understand in the next of the session, right? Either unanswered questions, or if you want us to cover something else that may be additionally that you may have not touched on, or you want to understand a little more deeper, feel free to ask us. I mean, you may use you may ask questions directly here, or if you think Slido is the way to ask the questions, feel free to do it. I'll pause here for questions, and then I'll hand over to Senthil. Sumit, do you have any questions at this stage on chat, or do you have any questions at this stage on
As of
Slido?
no, as of now, I don't see, but I see. Can you please add? Someone is just sharing his email, I believe, for adding to the
Sure.
pipeline. But I think yeah, we can continue.
Sure. Okay. Senthil, over to you. Maybe you can
Thanks,
share your
thanks.
screen, Senthil. You can share your
Sure.
screen, and then you can get started. Yeah.
Let me know if you are able to see my screen. It is visible. Yeah. Oh, thank you. So, first and foremost, I think folks who had already shared a couple of email IDs, I have added for information. Krishna, I have added already your email into the Azure DevOps. So probably if you can access, I have pinged a link in the interest of all the folks. I can ping who has given the email ID. I can provide this, or if you want to make a note of this from the screen which I have shared it, you can also log in.
Can you ping the email ID, Senthil? So, team, what we'd like you to do is take the link that Senthil will share, and you can try joining. When you join, you can use your the whatever email ID you have given. You can use the same credentials, right? If you've given an email ID, you log in through your Gmail user ID and password. That is what you need to do. Senthil, I think some of them are
One,
asking that. Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
One request I would say is if you are logging in from your organization account, say for example, you may use Chrome or Firefox or IE. Predominantly, if you are using a Cognizant, organization ID account like that. So I would suggest you to clear your cookies and cache, or use a browser which is not used for your organization account. So for the folks who have given you, I would suggest you to log in using that help. I can see some of the folks who are typing in. Raj, so Krishna, I see you are not able to log in, is it? Nine Raj, if you can share your email ID in the participant list, that would be good, please. Monish, if you can give another email ID, I can maybe probably I'll try adding you. So Nayanraj, you should have got an email basically in this credentials. I mean, nayanraj@bizzinsights.com. So please check from your end if you're able to access it, please. Yeah, Monish, maybe if you can disconnect your, yeah, please. So I hope the rest of the folks who hasn't reached out with the Azure, I hope you have an organization account or you have created the personal account. If not, please let me know. I can do that, please.
Whoever is able to successfully log in, can you just ping a yes? Just say you're able to log in so that we know that some of you are able to log in. I am able to. So the ID is the Latin. I am able to log in.
So Krishna, I hope you are able to see my screen. So I have given you access for C Krishna G item at outlook.com. So hopefully you will receive a mail as well. So as you can see, it has been added here. So Sony Vivek. So I'll try adding your name as well, email ID as well.
So Senthil Krishna says he's able to access.
Yeah, that's great. Good to know.
And there was Mahati and there was Sony Vivek. I hope you got it.
Yeah, for
And
Sony
Monish as well.
Vivek, I have provided the access. Uh, the Sony, yeah, I have Sony. Hope you are able to access as well. Please let me know if you have any challenges, please. So Monesh, I'm adding your organization account. Hopefully, you should be able to access it. Let's see. Monesh, I'm removing the Yahoo for your information, please. Okay, let me know if you have. So I believe, or I hope, rest of the folks who hasn't provided, you have any one of your organization accounts. Just to recap, uh, so that you'll be able to follow it up along with me as soon when I try to show some features along with the hands-on that we are going to do. The folks who all have provided the email ID, I hope you are able to log in without any issues. Let me know if you are.
Senthil, I think you can go ahead and get started.
Okay, start. Okay. So the rest of the session that we would basically cover upon on what Azure brings us to at the table. Predominantly, Vinod have covered most of the introduction of DevOps, and then how QA can become an Azure expert in terms of what the basic features or the qualities that we need to think about it. In this scenario, like this is an integrated solution as far as concerned in terms of SDLC. For a project, for an organization where there are multiple projects involved in it, and then we would like to see how we can manage the different projects based on the different development practice. So Azure provides us to manage the different team members and the boards and the development teams, repositories, or the code repository built by the QA, and subsequently all being migrated and then baselined into the repository, and then subsequently the build pipelines that is being all in a single platform that could be built in using the Azure as a whole. So one of a few benefits that we see quickly is when we see traditional tools from a defect management or a test management tool from ALM or Jira, and then we use a separate code repository, say Stash or Bitbucket or GitHub, and a separate continuous integration for Jenkins. Azure is a platform which covers a wide spectrum of tools, built and then extends into the Azure platform as a whole. So that is the big power of how the Azure brings in all the tools within a single platform. Yeah. Having said this, I just quickly move on to what Vinod had covered in the earlier slides, wherein in terms of agile planning and lean project management, the Azure boards is a place in where you could create user stories, epics, features, and then how it could be brought into a sprint basically, and then how dev and QA and rest of the activities are being planned. And I'll be covering upon most of the aspects of it in terms of what Azure Approach is about, Azure Repos, and continuous integration, continuous delivery monitoring, and few other aspects of infrastructure as a code. All these brings together into a single platform. That is where we see the power of this, and these are the basic aspects of it in terms of the DevOps practice as a whole. Before I jump into the features of these, as such, Azure DevOps has two aspects of it. One being the cloud services, that is the Azure DevOps services, and one being the on-premises, that is the team foundation server aspects of it. So that is the difference. Either an organization can have on-premises one or a cloud aspects of it. That will be the Visual Studio Team services or the Azure DevOps services. That would be teams or organization who in the past would have used a TFS or the Team Foundation control or version control, which has been enhanced to the Azure DevOps aspects of it. In short, these are the enablers which performs automation, agile, and DevOps practices. And then, as I said, it's extensive and supports multiple tools and technologies, and flexible with on-premises or the cloud services as well as a both of the combination which we can perform. Let me quickly go into the different Azure DevOps components, which we touch upon basically from the business analyst or the product owners aspects of it, wherein they plan prominently on what kind of whether to use a Scrum or Kanban boards, and then how we are going to bring the different agile tools aspects of it. So that is where we talk about the work aspects of it as Azure boards. Yeah. And subsequently, once the user stories and everything is being defined, and the dev and the QA can widely use the source control, version control repository, there are two aspects of it. For a team which would like to extend the team foundation version controlling using the Visual Studio Team services, they can utilize TFS or the TFFBC, or on another hand, we can use the cloud hosted private or public with help of Git. Yeah. Uh, as a whole, Azure Boards is one, and Azure Repos is more about the version control repository. And the build and release aspects of it is more towards the Azure pipelines, which wherein we would extend all the integration and delivery aspects of it for the various languages and the platforms and the cloud aspects of it. So I will cover on most of the hands-on that we will have it, so that we will have a better understanding of all the features supported in it. On the whole, from a QA perspective, we would be looking in for a test management tool, for which the Azure test plans will cater you the different aspects of it in terms of the test management. If you would like to do a manual or exploratory testing or the continuous testing aspects of it, Azure test plans as such will provide test management aspects of it in terms of designing the test cases or writing the automation suites which could be associated to your Azure test plans. So that seamlessly the requirement which is being defined will be associated to the repos and as well as the user stories which is being created. In terms of the Azure artifacts, these are all the extended packages. Typically, we would be using, like for example, a Maven based, wherein the dependencies are basically from the M2 Maven repository, right? So likewise, there will be different repositories or packages which would be governed by the organization from the respective developers, which would like to be utilized or shared among the end users. So this is a place in where the packages and artifacts could be privately or publicly sourced and could be extended for the team to be shared across. Yeah. Uh, Let me quickly go into the different services as such. This is in detail view of what Azure Boards is all about in terms of how we can set up the Scrum or a Kanban approach or a CMM approach. Let me quickly take you to that. First and foremost, as soon as you are in the Azure DevOps portal, there are URL associated to it. Universally, widely, this is the URL that cloud provides for any individual who is accessing the devazure.com, and followed by the organization name. For now, this is the organization name. That is my name, Senthilkumar. Subsequently, you can see if you are using your organization name, you would see the organization name or the subsequent unique name that is being provided here. Yeah. And beneath the bottommost part of it is the organizational settings. Say, for example, if I am representing an organization, I have multiple projects associated to me, then I can basically, as an administrator, I'll be able to govern this and then allocate teams and the end users who would be able to visualize or move on and extend the features of Azure as a whole. Yeah. Let me, before getting into the projects or the Azure features of it, on the boards, repos, and version control, let me give a quick view of what are these organizational settings. Just in case if you would like to be aware of things, if you're using an organization account, I think there will be certain policies that is being set. But if you're mostly using from a personal account, this will be an information for you. The first and foremost, there is a section called billing. Yeah. This Azure as a whole provides a 30-day free access to all the features as in for most of the individuals who would like to explore and then have an hands-on to it. And first and foremost access is to the basic users who will have access to the all the features of it. There are other features also like a stakeholder and other features wherein you will be able to see it out. As you can see, the free access is being given to file, and also the test plans, because the test management aspects of it is being the most critical, wherein you would be able to extend, certify a particular product or an application. You can also utilize this by start free. This will also be a 30-day free license for you to enhance and then have a hands-on of the basic plus test plan here. So having said that, this is for you to just be aware of. That's why just enabling it so that you will be able to have these features in it. So as I have enabled this, you can see that trial expires in 30 days from today. Yeah. Um, and moving on to the projects as such, so for within this Azure projects, I have created two projects, one with test demo, one with ATA GTR Azure demo participant. As you can see, this is a basic user that I have provided, and it was last updated here. If you would like to create a new project, all you need to create is click on new project here and then provide a name. We can say participant more 88 year, wherein you can see there are visibility. One, you can either make it public, predominantly if you have an organization account or you would like to have an access to the limited users, then you can very well click on the private here. And the first and foremost thing that I said in the earlier slides, where the version control system, right? Wherein you can see there is access to the inside or outside the public private cloud. That is, one is Git, another one is Team Foundation version control. So you would have the privileges based on your development team, either to go in with version control, that is Git, or Team Foundation version control. I would suggest, if you have an MSDN license and your development team mostly recommends or utilizing the Visual Studio with the MSDN license, I would suggest you to go in with Team Foundation version control, which will be more seamless. Yeah, for a development team which will have predominantly utilizing the Git aspects of it and then Java or Python aspects of it, I would recommend you to go with the Git version control, which is also, so these are the version controlling system is governed within the Azure platform. Yeah, and this is the feature that provides you to have the different agile practices. One being agile, basic, what is where we are currently going in, and if your project is more towards the CMM aspects of it, wherein would need different audit trails and then different artifacts to be in place in into a CM level, then going for the option which is the work item process CMMI. So currently I will stick to basic. That is where we are in. So once you say this create, then you will be able to see a new line item getting added in the project section here. So for any questions, please interrupt me if you have. Please feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions. I'll pause it for now for 1 or 2 minutes. Hi everyone. Feel free to mute yourself if you want to ask any specific question. Okay, yeah. Let me carry on. If you have any question, please let me know. So we have so far covered the projects aspects of it, and the next thing we have covered the billing aspects of it. Let me quickly add a few more additional points in terms of billing. If you would like to Azure. Sorry about that. So as I said, there are other aspects of it, probably for your information right now. When we go on with the pipelines aspects of it, I'll touch upon the pipeline aspects of it, and then come back on what this MS hosted or the self-hosted agents that we talk about here. I think once we cover upon the pipelines, then we good enough to relate what this particular box is all about. Yeah. Having said that, there are other things in terms of the resources wherein you will be able to utilize a total of 2 gigabyte for free access to the artifacts, and then the cloud-based performance or the load testing to 20,000 virtual user machines as a whole. So these are all the basic features that is being supported for an user who would like to extend the free trial aspects of it. Let me click on, let me move on to the user section to it. We talked about so far the projects, how to create a project, how a project can be with whether it's a Git or a TFS, and then whether it's going to be a Scrum or a Kanban or a CM aspects of it. Once a project is being created, who are all your basic stakeholders or the team users, right? So this is the place in where, as an administrator, you will be able to add a new user here, and then say, for example, you would like to add a new user as a whole. Then subsequently you can see what kind of access level needs to be provided and in here. Either it could be a basic, as we can see, the basic plus test plans is being added as I had enabled the test plans feature. Yeah. So typically, for if you are extending a free user, a free DevOps account, I would suggest to make sure that you have 5 basic users who can have a full privileges of administrator aspects of it, and then rest of them may have a stakeholder aspects of it. For the team who had the folks who have provided me the users, I have provided you a stakeholder access currently. That's what you can see in your across your names there, wherein you can see the access level is provided as a stakeholder. Yeah. So apart from this, there are group rules where you will be able to govern a group rule for a specific users group. I'll not touch upon mostly on this, rather than we can move on with the rest of the aspects. Uh, Apart from this, there are repositories that I will cover detailed, and then I'll come back on what agent pools is about and what other the parallel jobs are all about. You can feel free to interrupt me as and when you have any questions. Okay, so let me quickly go into the test demo, wherein as and when you log into the Azure dashboard, you will be able to see these are the menus as a whole: boards, repos, pipelines, test plans, and artifacts. Uh, the first reports, wherein you will be able to see these are the different sections: work items, boards, backlog, sprints, and queries. This is a place wherein you would be able to epic or an issue or a task or an user story if you are having access to the other agile or Kanban mode. For now, since I have selected this as a basic, I am able to see as a epic issue and a task. So by adding clicking on this epic, you will be able to create a new work item, and then subsequently create who can be part of these users, right? As you can see, it's showing my name. If you have in the other ATA, GTR, test demo, you'll be able to see the rest of names associated to it. So this is how you can create a epic. And if you are more from an if your project is more towards a QA governed board wherein you would like to have QA tasks associated to it, and then you would like to plan for it. Yeah. Uh, and also you can create the tasks and then defects aspects of it within the boards subsequently, and then you will be able to assign it to the respective stakeholders or the team users who intend to use these tasks associated to it. So if you open for example, if you are, or let me take a task which is associated to a QA here, and supposing if I'm basically going to take a task from a QA, and then it could be a test design as well as test scripting to it. Then once I have completed designing and then doing automation script to it, there are some options associated to it. It's basically the add link here, right? So this add link can be your repository. For example, here in this case, it is a repository which is showing me with some certain set of data that is my respective automation scripts, which could be associated to a task. So that will have a closure of for the task, and subsequently you will be able to move it to the state of doing and then done subsequently. Hope it makes sense. Any questions so far? Okay. So we discussed on what the boards and work items is all about as a whole. There are other options that you can also see in is the column options here, wherein you could define how you want to make it, whether based on the effort or whether based on assigned to accepted by all these things. These are the will be self-explanatory for you. Let me quickly go on to the boards as a whole. Wherein you can see this is the, if you had worked on in terms of the TFS dashboard or TFS boards, it's the same piece of thing wherein you can create a new task. Say this is a and subsequently you can set whom you want to basically associate it to, right? Likewise, you can create different tasks and then the new item associated to it. And there are other drop downs which is available in terms of the epics and issues as well. Let me I'm not touching upon the backlogs, but the sprints, wherein you will be able to create the sprints associated to either it could be a bi-weekly or a 3-week sprint. Likewise, as you can see, I've created a sprint 0, which is from today to 10 working days. That's how we can see the sprint which was created here. Like you can also create a new sprint basically with the name sprint 1. I think that is another name associated to it. That's why you can see a date. So you can set a futuristic date, and then you can basically create for which sprint it is going to be, and then say create. Once you have a set of backlog associated to it, you can also query it based on the different end users, based on the user stories, or based on the different defects that you have raised basically from here. For example, I have an epic here, and I would like to query what are the different epics basically. Then you will be able to use these queries from the queries feature here and then run the query basically. There is other feature associated to it wherein from all your MSD and Microsoft Office 360, you can also extend these APIs into your Excel sheets and spreadsheets, and then you will be able to basically query it and then pull it over as well. So here you can see there is an email feature available wherein you will be able to export to a CSV as well. Okay, either you can export it or you can also import it for your test plans that you would intend to bring into your test plans. Yeah, so this is one such feature that I have just shown you here. So any questions so far in terms of boards is concerned? Let me stop for a minute. If not, I can move on to Azure repositories.
Senthil, there is a question in
Hi,
chat.
Senthil.
Yes, please.
Can I ask? Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a question. Like I have created the epic first, and I want, and then I go and created the new task or maybe the user story. Then how can I associate that epic with the epic?
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. So, for example, you are in the Epic and you would like to add a task or link the task to an Epic. Hope I have understand your question.
Yes. Yes. Correct.
So, as you can see, there is a related work and add link here. Yeah. Are you able
Yeah.
to follow it? So here you can add an existing work item wherein you can see a link, or if you are going from a task, this would be a parent. If you are going from an epic, it would be a child basically here. Got it? And you will be
Yes.
able
Okay.
to, okay, this is how you can add a task here. And subsequently you add it, you will be able to see the task here. That makes sense?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, let me know if anyone has any questions, or let's move on, please. Okay, okay, let's move on to the next service associated with Azure DevOps, the Azure repos. As I said in the previous slides, the supported tool one is basically from the Azure repo Git, or the other aspects of it in terms of the supported tool two is the Team Foundation version control. As you can see, the repos seamlessly works with most of the IDEs that we use. As you can see, the open source IDE provided by Microsoft VS Code or IntelliJ, or moving it in terms of Eclipse, or in terms of VS Code or APM aspects of it, right? So you can have these things, these IDEs associated to your Git, and there are some add-ins or in an Eclipse wherein you go to an Eclipse marketplace, you will be able to let me quickly open it and show you in terms of Eclipse probably. So if you go to Eclipse marketplace, for example, you will be able to access the Eclipse marketplace, and then if you provide Azure here, you will be able to get the respective add-on where you would like to integrate or have an handshake between the Eclipse IDE to the Azure DevOps. Okay, so this is how you type Azure DevOps here, and then subsequently you can see the add-on basically here, and then you need to install it, and it gets connected to the Azure cloud, and subsequently you need to provide the credentials for the account that you intend to connect. As you can see, the Azure toolkit for Eclipse, this is the one which would extend all your version control repository into the Azure toolkit. So I'll just, if you are a user who uses Eclipse, probably this is how you would need to go into the help and Eclipse marketplace and type in Eclipse, sorry, Azure, and then you will be able to install this. Yeah. So likewise, you can also extend for an IDE such as IntelliJ or VS Code as well. In the similar context, if you are a user with Team Foundation version control, you will be able to go in with the same set of like VS Code, Eclipse, and even the other aspects of IDE as well. Yeah. So let me quickly touch upon the test plans, Azure test plans aspects of it, and then we will subsequently go to the demo aspects of repos and test plans. So in terms of Azure test plans, if I'm getting into a project which in wherein I'm very new to an application, I just want to do an exploratory testing. Then Azure as such provides you a platform where you will be able to record a particular browser, select a browser, and then go on to an application and do a kind of an exploratory testing. And then subsequently those aspects are getting recorded in terms of the different screenshots and the in terms of the browser based test management solution as a whole. Other aspects of it, if you are using a Visual Studio as a platform, the dev and MSDN as a platform, you will be able to associate your automation script with a test suite, and then it could have a seamless traceability to your unit or functional testing aspect. So these are the high level features that has been supported, being it from a test plan or test suite aspects of it. Multiple configurations, it could be a browser, within a browser that could be Firefox, IE, or mobile based devices, or any other add-ons that you would intend to do it. And would like to link on the unit or functional testing, code coverage, or do an NFT aspects of it. So this is pretty much from Azure Repos and Azure Test Plans. Let me quickly go on into the demo. So for the folks who have just joined recently, I've just gone into the test demo project, and then if you click for the first time the repos, you can see an empty screen. Let me quickly go into the new demo participant, wherein it will be nothing will be, it should be visible here. So you can see this is switched to default. So I'm switching it to the default. For the first time, you would be able to see that your repo is empty, something like this. Yeah. So this provides an individual to say that if my IDE is one of these, Android Studio or any of these IDEs that we talked about, Eclipse, IntelliJ, or PyCharm, or VS Code, Visual Studio, right? So you intend to copy this URL, and then you can associate your automation suite by providing from your IDE. That is what it all says in this first module aspects of it. If you are most comfortable by using the git bash command, that I can show you quickly. So if you are more comfortable in using git bash command, you can very well go in. I'll be covering how you can do this as well in the session. So what you can typically do is you need to initialize your automation suite that you had created locally first, and then the next thing that you need to do is initialize this code. Say for example, if I am using a project which is a Java Maven based project, this is my piece of code, then I need to basically log into this location in my hash. So I have provided this command. So how you navigate to the respective folder is by doing a change directory, and then followed by copying this URL here, right? And you can say paste. Then you would be able to basically go in. Since I have already moved into this folder, I need not So this is how you do it, and then subsequently you can say git init for the first time if you are not going to initialize it. If it is already initialized, you need not know this. You need not use this command basically, and then followed by git add space dot. What this command is basically going to do is make a copy of this, and then it is ready for the version controlling from your local, but it will not make this repository to push into the remote, that is the Azure repos that we are currently. Okay, the moment you say git space dot add, it's going to find out how many scripts, how many Java based files, or whatever the pom.xml file is going to list out here, right? The next thing that you can intend to do is basically what you can do is, once this is being done, then you will say git space commit -m followed by a name to it. You can say initial commit, okay, and then you can press enter if you are doing it for the first time. Okay, so this will basically initialize the first commit that you would intend to do, and followed by the URL that you would be copying it from here. This is the URL that you can copy it if you are using a push an existing repository from command line. Since we are trying this from an git bash, I have used this command. So this will basically make you to push the code which is from your 8 to this portion. Okay, so this is how you can push the code basically. Okay, so that is the most part of it from the command line aspects of how you can add a repo into Azure repos. Uh, Having said that, we have some hands-on wherein you can I'll just ping on this URL. I hope if you have a GitHub account, you can download this example, that is Java Maven JUnit Hello World. This has 9 test cases associated to it. Let me put it in let me put it in the participants web chat, so that you can basically do hands-on in your respective account. Okay, so so one thing is that since this is a very new demo project and no files has been added, that's why you were able to see this. The moment you add from git bash or check in the code from the ID that you intend to do, you would be able to see the repos which is in this project, the same project that I have initialize, that is this basically. You can see Java Maven JUnit Hello World. Okay, so this is how you can see whether a project have been successfully pushed into the Azure DevOps repos or not. Okay, so as you can see, this is the project folder wherein a very basic Hello World with 9 test scripts basically. Any questions so far before I move on? Okay, fine. So let me quickly provide access to this URL. This from wherein you will be able to, if you have a GitHub account, you will be able to basically fork this project into your folder. I'll give an example how you can fork it and then how you will be able to access it as well. The moment you go into the project and then say Azure repos, right, you can very well import a repository here by clicking the import repository, and then provide this URL whichever I had provided you. This is how you can clone an existing URL by providing the repository type as git,
as I said, we know what is a repository type, a Git or TF, Team Foundation Version Control. And in this case, it's going to be a Git. And then I'm basically going to have this Java Maven unit hello world. Yeah. And I'm going to basically say import. The moment you say import, you can see there is on its way, it is going to process this, and you will be able to see this, the project Java Maven JUnit hello world. Okay, so the import is successful. Now you will be able to click here to navigate to code view. So wherein you will be able to see the Azure reports, which is been cloned basically from an GitHub URL. Hope it's clear with everyone. Any questions? Okay, let me move on in terms of how. Sorry, there is a ping. Okay, sure, I'll do that. Okay, so as you are in the repos section, there is repos files, and then you can see the topmost drop down wherein you can see new repository. New repository is basically to create a new repository if you are going to do it from the scratch, say test demo. Then you can say if you want to add a adme readme file or not. It's left to you to decide, or which technology you would basically intend to. This is something that is you can do that. Yeah. Supposing this is for a steps which wherein you can create a new repository. For cloning a new existing URL, you can say import repository and provide the Git URL if you are using a GitHub cloned URL. Yeah. If you are using a TFVC, then probably you need to have the subsequent credentials in order to connect to a Team Foundation version control system, and then subsequently you will be able to create it. Hope Krishna, hope your question is answered, please. Okay, we have covered on how you can import or create a new repository in it. You can also manage the repositories if you are an administrator, wherein you can see these are the options provided, wherein you will be able to rename it or delete it based on the policies that you would like to do it. And these are the settings and then policies or permissions, who are the set of users who can basically contribute to, or who can for example, if you are in a team of 10 QA and being a lead or a lead automation lead, which whom wants to basically review the code before it gets merged into a master. So you can set that the rest of the individuals will not be able to directly merge into a master. They will be able to create different branches associated to it, and then the individual who has access to the administrator aspects of it will be able to do a master do it master. Not able to pull label. So this is the repository label, that is Java-Maven JUnit hello world. That is how you can see this is the repo label basically. As you can see, there is another question. Still getting loaded, Krishna. Okay, I know maybe that since I have given you a stakeholder access, that's why I think you are not able to see it. Let me make yourself available as So I have made you as one of the other users. So if you can control F5 so that it gets refreshed, Krishna, and I think you should be able to see the repos if I'm not. Okay, thanks. Okay, moving on. So we have covered so far the repos, and moving on within the repos, there are other aspects of it. That is the commits that we can quickly see on what are the different commits available as and when you do a git bash or a commits basically from the different stakeholders, you will be able to see the master and the branches that has been created over here. Right, as you can see here, these are the different branches associated to it, and subsequently, if an individual from your team would want to do a pull request and then contribute towards, then you will be able to use this pull request. Yeah, and this is the feature wherein you will be able to have a branches for which the team can have multiple branches associated to it. So you can see, you can create a new branch from forking the existing branch, something like a new feature. I'll say a new feature is going to be developed. Okay. Then for a task that I discussed basically, right? So that then I can basically create that new feature, and then I'll be able to create a branch. Subsequently, once you have developed a piece of code, then the respective individuals will be checking in their code in this feature. Yeah. So if you can see here, we are in the master branch, and you have created different branches associated to the feature, and then that is where you are using it. Okay. Okay, I think I need to provide Nine Raj also an access. Any questions so far before I move on? So this is how you can create a new pull request if you would like to contribute for any of these changes, by which if I am a team member, and basically I have developed a feature, I have developed some scripts and then checked into my feature, then I raise a new pull request, something like this, to the master, and this basically goes into my higher ups, who will be able to basically review whether I have reviewed the scripts, and then it's good to go. Then it will be finally pushed to the master branch. Okay, this is how you will be able to have a pull request associated to your team. Okay, so having said that, I have pretty much covered on the Azure repos. Any questions before I move on to the pipelines so far?
Yes, thank you. Can I
Yes,
ask?
yes, please go ahead.
So, my question is like, I'm
Go ahead, please.
hearing some echo. Yeah.
Please go ahead. Or you can type in your questions in the chat as well. Okay. Let's move on. By the time, if you have any questions, you can feel free to type in the chat, please. Uh, let's move on to the pipelines, basically, wherein we can see how we can create a pipeline. So when you land up in the pipeline, you can say this is the option wherein you can see create pipeline. So you can click on create pipeline here, and then subsequently probably Nine Raj, we have some time for doing hands-on. Probably I'll provide you an access for you, please. once you click create pipeline, you will be able to see the various code Git repository associated to it. As I said, there are different public private version controls repository which could be integrated with the pipeline, being Azure Repo Git or the other Git aspects of it, or from the stash or Bitbucket here. Let me quickly go on with the other Git here. And then once you are into the respective page, you will be able to see the source associated. For us, since we had checked in the code from an GitHub, you can see the respective project where the project is being created and the respective repository, that is Java Maven JUnit Hello World. Yeah, and I'm basically creating a pipeline for the master branch here. Yeah. Say once you are done with this, then you can say continue. Let me quickly show the other aspects of it, wherein you can connect directly with the Azure authentication, and then maybe a subversion if you are using a subversion, or the stash Bitbucket if you would like to use also. So these are the extended features of Azure from a version control repository system provided by Azure Repos. Let me say continue here. I think some questions. If my project access is public and I want to share my project with someone from it. This is an example of how we see. Currently, I have an organization URL, but as you can see, there are different users being provided as part of the ATA GDR, right? So this itself will have a private or a public access, but you can limit with the respective users who would like to intend to do it. Okay. So
Yes,
if you are, go ahead, please.
So actually, someone asked me to do some assignment and set up with the Azure DevOps, and I want to share the results and the project with the outside of like with someone in another company. So how can I do that?
Okay.
If you
Okay. If you are mostly interested only in the results, there are different aspects of it that I will be covering upon. How there are different. There is a place in where you have Marketplace, Visual Studio. This is the website where you have additional extensions to it, which can be added to your browser. Say it could be a Firefox or a Chrome or any other browser, and then you have a handshake to it, you will be able to access those results in a browser and then take a screenshot or ask them to use it also.
okay?
Okay. So there are different extensions as such, which could facilitate the end users in terms of what they really need if they are interested only in test results and then things like that. They will be able to get the respective results. If you are interested only in the results, then you can use test and feedback, for example. Okay, which could be added to an browser, and then users can use it. Okay.
Sure, yeah, I will try. Thank you.
Yes. So okay. Okay, so this is how we create a new pipeline where you can say there are different templates to it. If your development tech stack is basically from one of these environments, maybe a .NET or a mobile, or your technology tech stack is basically from Python or a Maven based or a Xcode, right? You can select lots of these templates which is being provided by Azure. As you can see, if you want to use a Node.js or a NPM or a Xamarin Cloud Android mobile platform, you would like to connect to a CI Jenkins platform, then you can see all these templates associated to it. For now, I am just blindly going to say empty job here so that you know what we are going to cover from this, right? So the moment you are ended up in this pipeline, you can see a pipeline here, a get sources, which is nothing but the Java Maven file that we created. Yeah. And subsequently there you can see and run on agent. Okay. As I said earlier, I'll be covering on this agent, what the agent is all about. Yeah, let me quickly show what an agent is about. So an agent is an computing infrastructure with which a software which could run different jobs at a time. The agents are either it can be a Microsoft hosted agent or a self-hosted agent. When I meant a Microsoft hosted agent, since Azure platform is from Microsoft, it provides the different platforms as a whole. Either it could be Windows or it could be from an. Let me quickly show you that so that you will. So as you can see here, these are platforms which is supported from being it from a Mac platform or a Linux or from a Windows 2019. That is the Windows basically the 10 information. So these are all the Windows hosted agent. You can also create a self-hosted agent. When I say a self-hosted agent, it is nothing but an agent being commissioned within your own desktop or the laptop that you currently using it. That will become an agent. Okay. So let me quickly get into the agent aspects of it so that you get to know what the agent that we are talking about. So in the project settings, you can see an option called agent pools, wherein you will be able to see these are the agent. So if as a team we are grouped together in this forum, individually we will have different missions. If we can set up an agent in all our missions, uh, those all machines can be grouped into a pool, which is say for example this is a test pool, and I'll be able to add all these agents here. Okay, so for example, if I want to add a self-hosted agent, all I need to do is click on a new agent here, and then you need to basically download this agent, and then you need to provide a PowerShell command and then type all these details. Okay, once this has been done, you will be able to see a new option which is getting added here. Probably in the I can show you that currently. So this is basically from PowerShell, from wherein you will be. So as you can see, I have logged into the agent. Basically, this is how I'll just quickly show you what this is all about. So I have created a folder called agent, and subsequently, first and foremost, I have downloaded the agent, and then followed by opened a PowerShell. This is the indication of PowerShell here, and subsequently you can use this zip in order to extract the folders, and followed by the config command here. Okay, the moment you are going to say config here, right, you can see that the Azure is going to basically handshake from your local computer to this agent, to the Azure pipeline that we are talking about. In this case, you can see that it has been connected from the Azure pipeline. The next thing that you need to do is from the URL that we have here, right? You need to provide this URL into this URL in this place. But there will be something called a personal access token that is needed for the server to have an handshake between your local self-hosted machine and the Azure cloud platform. Okay, how do you do it? You need to go to this user settings and then create a personal access token here. Okay, then you can create a new token basically here, and then you can use full access if you want to full-fledgedly do access to this, and then say create. Okay, you can basically copy this clipboard. and then you will be able to use the CLI version of Azure pipeline to this Azure repo that you intend to do. Okay. The reason why I have created this Azure agent here is I can make multiple self-hosted agent across my team and utilize those machines to execute. I may have developed a set of script which may be working in my machine locally, but I want to make sure that the end users are also in same page with without any issues across all the team members, right? So likewise, you will be able to create those agents. Thereby, you can see the self-hosted agents here. Okay, that is how you can relate this self-hosted agent here. In this example, what I'm showing you is a Microsoft hosted agent, which is the Windows 2019. Okay, and subsequently followed by clicking on a plus. This is a Maven based project. As you can see, there are multiple build tasks associated to it here. It could be a build. If you are interested in a test package, you can integrate it with publish test results. Or if you are more pertaining to an package, you can use npm, for example, or you can use Python as well if your development tech stack is Python. And more from a deployment standpoint, you can use all the Azure aspects of it if you want to connect to an Azure VM virtual machine also. Okay, from here. So all these things are both free as well as extensions of the different features from wherein you can see these are all the different features which is eventually gets populated in this scenario. Okay, so in this since this is a Java based a Maven based project, I'm selecting typing Maven and then clicking on Maven and then saying add. Okay, then you can select this Maven based pom.xml and you can see by default this got listed with pom.xml. Okay, the next thing that you can do is to save and queue hit here. The moment you save and queue, you can see what comment you want to do. Demo Java Maven. Okay, so and I can see this is the pipeline where you would like to do it, either it's a hosted or a private agent. I'm saying Azure pipeline itself, hosted agent itself, and then I have selected Windows 2019 here, and the branch is Java unit project. And then you can say enable system diagnostics if you want to do, and save and run basically. This will So this is just kickstarted on. It will basically kickstarted the pipeline, whatever the repos that we have basically integrated into the pipeline. Let's quickly refresh it, and then I'll show you where are we in terms of how the. So this is how you can see. So no agent is being found. Let me quickly change the agent. How do you do it in terms of all pipelines? And then basically you can select this agent again and then edit the agent here. Since the pool is not being added here, that's the reason why this was erroring it out here. So it will be Azure pipeline itself here. That's why the reason why that's what it was erroring it out. Any questions for? As soon as we are done with this, I think it is because of. Okay, I know why this. Are anyone trying to do from the backend also? That is how. That is why there is any reason. Probably I will show in the, another project which is already been done here. That is the reason why there is some conflict in terms of. Are you sure you want to leave this page? If there are any parallel users who is trying to do this, that then there will be some certain conflicts in this. Let's see. If not, I will move on to the other project where I have the pipeline being created and the results are in place. So in a similar project which was created, I am quickly running the scripts from there and then quickly show you the artifacts. I mean the pipeline basically. So I have another pipeline also created for a Python-based file. I'm just plainly saying here, and then the moment you can see this has been tagged with Windows 2019, and you can see load one new run, and you can see the job is being basically queued here, and subsequently you can click on the respective job. If you have manually triggered it, you can also schedule it based on flag associated to it. So we can see there are queued jobs today at 6:33 p.m. and then subsequently you can see the additional tasks gets listed out here, and subsequently the jobs gets triggered as well. All we are trying to do in this example is because you have reached the maximum number of requests that can run parallelly. Okay. Um, so as let me quickly show another example wherein how we have seen results. So this is another one which was run. Let me quickly show you this. So you can see this is being basically initialized here. This is the hosted agent, the agent machine which is displayed here, which is Windows with the agent version, and followed by for any machine, the first and foremost that will be done is checking out the project, the Maven based project, which by which it gets checked out of all the projects and then placed inside the respective agent or either it's a hosted agent or a self-hosted agent, and then it checks out into the respective agent, and then subsequently the pom.xml basically executes something like this. This is the point where you can see your test cases getting executed. Okay, and you can see the build is success here. This is the pom.xml file, and you can see test to publish 9, and you can see remaining 0. So where you can see the results, published test runs exist here in this link. Okay, I'll quickly go on to the test wherein you can see this build is success, and there is a tab called tests. Okay, I have clicked on test, and you can see how many tests the whole summary out of it, how many passed, and what is the percentage success rate, pass percentage, how much duration it had ran. And if you would like to know the details out of it, how are the tests basically got executed, this is how you can see a test main file which ran for like this much time to this much time, and you can see the subsequent test results as well. Okay. And another aspects of it is also that you can also look for these results in the test plans. Okay. And basically in runs. Okay, once you click on runs, you can also see these automation test results over here. The moment you click on runs, you can see the respective results getting displayed in the run. Okay. Any questions so far? Anyone has any questions? So I have covered pretty much on the pipelines, the artifacts as a whole. I've just covered. Probably in the interest of time, probably I will leave some time for you to do some hands-on, and then subsequently we can get it to the end of the session, probably. So just quick update on the extensions. Like will be able to integrate with a service now. If you're interested in reporting some like Allure or any other reporting aspects of it, you will be able to extend those Allure test reports. If your application is more towards Angular or another non-Angular, then if you're more pertaining to an Angular, you will be able to do protractor-based report as well. And the development predominantly, if you're focusing on a behavior-driven development from an Java standpoint, you can use Cucumber, or from an .NET, you can use SpecFlow as well. More from an code quality aspects of it, you can also extend Azure with SonarQube. Okay. Like I said earlier, you can see a enormous amount of marketplace features associated here, wherein you can go and search. This is a forum like how individuals create such extensions and then upload it into the Visual Studio Marketplace. It's a common forum for anyone to contribute and then upload it as an open source forum. Okay. Okay. Any questions? As I said, this is the place where you can see the test results here, and you can see the outcomes associated to it. And likewise, the test results of each of these test runs which got executed. You will be also add the machine names if you are doing a remote automation. Say I am basically have a team who is geographically located in India and North America or Middle East, right? Then you can set up the agents using the self-hosted agent across the geography, and you will be able to associate the platforms, and then the end users also will be able to seamlessly get executed out of these. Any questions? And yeah, please go ahead. Okay, other part of the aspects is like you can create a dashboard within the Azure, wherein if you are going to showcase your weekly deliverables or how the automation test results are up to, you can create some dashboards wherein you can say edit and then add these test runs here, right? I can see test result run here, and you can say add, and subsequently if you click on here, you will be able to see the width and height of it. Based on the release aspects of it or the build, you will be able to select which build you would like to basically add into the dashboard. Okay. this is for your information, because most of the time we would be end up showing would like to show some dashboard to our stakeholders as well, right, in terms of how the execution standpoint and things like that. So this is one way of doing it. And if you would like to use a common lessons learned or a guide handbook for the team, you can also use wiki, where you would be able to create a new subpage to it, and then there are some HTML, XML markup language associated to it, and then you can add tables, which in by when you can add a table which could be used by the team, right? So these are the different uh, mm, features supported by Azure as a whole, by which you will be able to share the status or the lessons learned to your teams as well. Any questions so far? If any would one, I hope parallelly you are also doing the hands-on. If you have any specific questions, I'm open to answer those, and we will move on to the final stages of the presentation, please. Any questions from the team? Okay. Yes, please. We can customize the dashboard. We can customize the dashboard, who can view it, and based on the show team profile, right? So you can see from the team who can basically view this. Supposing it could be a dashboard for leadership, it could be a dashboard for within the team that you can decide on and then provide access to that. Hope I have answered your question. Okay, let me take up on just out with agent. Could you please repeat that once again? Okay. Okay. So first and foremost, when you go in for the Azure platform in the organization settings, you can have the agents. Agents basically means an end user who's listening for any jobs or tasks. Okay, so this is how it is. Okay, so there are different pipelines in place, and you would have an agent. So today, the machine which I am basically sharing the screen could be a self-hosted agent. That is meaning I can set up an agent, download it, and then make this to be a self-hosted agent. But from an organization standpoint, there will be some security aspects of it, wherein I don't want my application or anything to be running on a Microsoft hosted agent, which is going to be a public agent, right? So I'll be limiting into the self-hosted agent by utilizing the resources who has the laptop or the virtual machines that is within my firewall range. So I would be intended to use the self-hosted agent there. And then subsequently the jobs and the pipelines basically listens to such tasks, and the jobs are getting executed in these agents and provides the end results out of it, or it gets published into the respective environment. Hope I have answered your question. Let me take one by one, because since this is more pertaining to pipeline, right? You can do execution of scripts in a Microsoft hosted agent or a self-hosted agent. You need not do anything in terms of Microsoft hosted agent, because there are certain features already being set up. If you are more particular in terms of a particular technology stack like Python, then you would need to have the environment variables being configured. those are the things which needs to be pre-configured in order for you to successfully get executed in the such environment. The reason why in a self-hosted agent you can do within the entity of your organization and the firewall itself. Okay, I think there was another question from Nayanraj. How can we implement Sonar Cube for Sonar code security? Yes, let me quickly explain you, Nayanraj. So say for example, you have wherein it deployed into a QA environment, you would intend to do a code coverage or code quality aspects of it by setting certain quality gates in place. Then you can go into the respective pipeline, and then you can add as a task associated to it. Okay, so here you can see Sonar Queue is one feature. This could be extended into your pipeline. It's going to be a certain amount of things which is free of cost, but an extensive use of Sonar Cube will need a cost associated to it. Okay. So within the pipeline, if you quickly go and open a pipeline here and edit it, if I have to edit it here. So here I just clicked on this, right? And then plus click on this. You can use a Sonar Cube here. Okay, you can see either you want to do so you can see these are deprecated, but you can use this Sonar Cube, which is get it free. And I basically, since I haven't added into my Azure organization, so you can click it by using get it free, and the moment you do it, you will be able to see all these features integrated into your pipeline task. I hope I have answered your question, Mike. So activated poll on Slido. Oh, sorry for that. Okay, feed trigger Slido. Okay. We are final. Anyone has any questions? We are in just final stages of it. Vinod, you would like to
see one question on Slido. I have tested it. Can I implement? Sorry. Can I implement of my Projects project, which is already existing project which is already 60% developed?
Yes, please. You can do it. Yeah, the answer is if it is 60 percentage or if it is already been done in part of it, definitely you will be able to extend it. The only first and foremost prerequisite would be to have it the Azure as a platform. Most and foremost, the organization standpoint will be the security aspects of it. Right. So I hope you are utilizing the Azure platform provided by organization. Then yes, you will be able to use the laptop or the desktop provided you, and you will be able to have a handshake from Eclipse to the Azure platform, and you will be able to access it. Yes. Hope I have answered your question.
So guys, please ask the questions if you have any.
For individuals who would like to know where the organization standpoint, where do we stand on the DevOps self-assessment, this is an URL where you can quickly go and access this URL and then key in some key questions, assessments to it, and then you can see where you typically stand on and how you can mature over the next stages of DevOps self-assessment in terms of outcomes, process, technology. You can see the curve basically.
Senthil, I have one question here, like how we can implement the YAML pipeline.
Okay, that's a good question. Sorry about that. I didn't handle it, but that's a good question. So as soon as we are into the pipelines, right? Say I'm creating a new pipeline. You can see the first one wherein it says say which said YAML file. You can click on so it provides you this YML file. Okay, what I would suggest is if you are a beginner, I would say not to go with this, but you know what each piece of these YML is all about, then you can very well and go in and key in, say, for example, you know what is a self-hosted or a Microsoft agent, then you will be able to key in, I want to deploy my code in Windows 2019. Yeah. So this is how you can play with around your YML file. And these inputs and tasks are basically differs from one set of tasks to the other. Since we took an example of Maven based project, you can see pom.xml and what prerequisite is JDK version and things like that, right? So this is how the YML file gets created. Yeah. Hope I have answered.
Yeah, so and I have another question, like we have
Yes,
set
please.
up the pipeline and we have run the test successfully.
Yes,
But
please.
what about the reports? How we can generate the reports? And like
Okay.
generally I saw the reports comes into the HTML, not HTML, JSON or maybe another format which is not readable. And
Yes, please. So what happens is, I'll tell you, when you are doing a self-hosted agent, say for example, this is my self-hosted agent, okay? What happens is there is something called bin folder, and there will be something called underscore work, and all your because this is a self-hosted agent, all my project gets checked out and then placed in here, and you can see the results somewhere created here with a fold called underscore work. Okay, so you will be able to see such results in your pipelines tasks itself, that so and so results is being in this folder. Let me quickly show you
in the project folder only.
In the project, as well as in say for example, if you are doing an extent report or Allure report, for example, you can see, and you are running in a self-hosted agent, you can see in the agent self-hosted agent locally created as well, or whichever machine that you intend to run it.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah,
I will.
but one prerequisite would be that you have the right set of input and the right set of output to have confidence has to be taken care. These things in terms of doing.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand. Like your voice was broken.
Oh, sorry. Let me take an example here. So this is the example, right? So since this was run in a Microsoft hosted agent, okay, this is available in this test management run, but you will be also able to see another URL which would be written in your local folder where this execution happens. When I say local, it is the self-hosted agent that you intend to do. Got it?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So these are all the couple of case in points for continuous testing as a whole. Wherein you can see the QA environment and staging environment and UAT as a whole. Sorry.
Someone has asked the hand, Nayan Raj. Do you have any question? Okay.
Okay. You would like to cover the final part of it. The final words, please.
Sure, I'll cover. I hope all of you found it useful, the hands-on useful. I think we wanted to spend as much time as possible on the hands-on than theory. I request all of you to kindly share your feedback in Slido, just a gentle reminder to do that. Let me quickly share. Senthil, if you can share the slides.
Sure. 1 second, let me share.
Present the slides, please.
Just give me a second. Sorry about that. Let me know if it's missing.
Yes, I can. Yeah, just slide show mode. Yeah. So this is a quick. What you see here now is a quick summary of Microsoft Azure, right? Case in point, an actual implementation. Standard Microsoft Azure. If you implement in your project, this may be standard. Again, on the right side, you can see a test tool supported. On the left side, you can see the standard pipeline, how the whole the Azure DevOps lifecycle has been implemented in one project. Again, the tools on the right side are variable. You can actually plug and play many of these tools. All of these tools are integratable into this whole DevOps pipeline. It's a very simple workflow that we have shown here. Again, obviously, the starting point is Azure Boards, where you have your sprint planning, your team management, your user stories, your reports, tasks, everything is housed in Azure Boards. Once the user story is ready and available, we have the developer and tester starting their work in parallel, right? The developer starts to build the code, and the tester starts to build the test suits, the test scripts. And as the developer completes and checks in his code, we have Azure repos, as well as the tester completes his code automation scripts and checks in. There also you have Azure repos, both handling the version controlling. Right. Once you have both of their code checked, using the pipelines, we have the automated builds that will happen. And once the automated builds are completed, the test gets automatically triggered, and they get into the QA environment. Starting point, it can be a dev environment, it can be a QA environment. In this case, in this example that we had implemented, it was directly being implemented into the QA, deployed into the QA environment. And you can set the quality gates, the thresholds that you want, right? So that once the test passed a particular threshold, then it gets deployed to the next environment. Here in our case, from QA, it was moved into staging environment, and from staging it was moved into UAT environment. Again, we can execute this whole cycle in a traditional environment, or we could also execute them in the infrastructure as a code. In this case, we had used infrastructure as a code. So this is a very simple view of the entire pipeline. Again, just a representation of that, and the fact that there are a multitude of tools that are integratable with this. Right. We'll move on to the next slide.
So we have last 1 minute, then we need to move to track.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. Another similar example, in this case, this was a case study where there were a set of tools like ALM, Jira, version 1, a multiple set of tools, and developed in a very customized way. And all of this was migrated into Azure DevOps. And you can see on the right side the equivalent tools for what you see on the left. And there were a set of benefits that were achieved, right, to 50 to 20% of effort that we overall were able to reduce. Approximately 1 lakh of artifacts were completely migrated from the old to the new environment. This is just a case study of not just developing new in DevOps, but also migrating from the traditional environment. I think with that we will close. Hope you found this session useful. I think some of you had questions on the DevOps. There is a link. We will ping you the link if you want to assess your organization's maturity or your project's maturity on where you stand. We will ping you that link as what you saw on the slide. Hopefully you find this useful. And one more time, a quick reminder to pass your feedback on Slido, please. Thank you.
Okay. So can I share my screen now?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you so much, Vinod and Senthilkumar. It was a wonderful workshop. People has liked it, as I can see. Lots of votes has came in this Slido deck, and then we can see the full. We can see this. Our chat is full of appreciation. So thank you so much for taking this particular workshop, and it will really help us in the future. So it was very well organized and very well delivered, and each and every slide was very meaningful. So thank you so much for this wonderful workshop. Hope we will connect in future as well.